Do you know someone who has spent their entire life trying to fix a bad habit, but somehow never succeeds? They try again and again, full of hope, full of promises, and every single time, they end up right back where they started. Maybe they swear this time will be different. They cut out sugar. They cut out carbs. They cut out joy. They start waking up early, going to the gym every day, pushing themselves as hard as possible. And for a few days, maybe even a couple of weeks, it works. But then life happens. Work gets stressful. Family needs attention. Bills pile up. Energy runs out. And slowly, quietly, the motivation fades. One skipped workout becomes two. One cheat meal becomes a full relapse. And before they even realize it, they're back to the same habits they swore they had left behind. You've probably seen this happen to someone close to you. A friend who keeps restarting diets. A family member who keeps saying, "I'll start on Monday." Someone who knows exactly what they should do, but just can't seem to keep doing it. And if we're being honest, maybe that person is you. Maybe you've already tried everything. Different diets, different routines, different motivation videos. And every failure made you believe something was wrong with you. That you lack discipline, that you're weak. That change just isn't meant for you. But what if that belief is wrong? What if the reason you keep failing has nothing to do with willpower, motivation, or discipline? What if the problem isn't you, but the system you've been using? Today, I want to show you a method that goes completely against what most productivity coaches and motivational gurus teach. A system that doesn't ask you to wake up at 5 a.m., grind harder, or transform your life in 30 days. In fact, it will ask you to do something so small, so simple, that you'll probably laugh when you hear it. Something that feels almost pointless. Something that seems too weak to work. And that's exactly why it does. This system comes from Japanese philosophy. It combines ideas that have been quietly shaping human behavior for centuries, without hype, without pressure, and without burnout. I won't explain them just yet, because first, you need to see what happens when change stops being violent and starts being gentle. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe to the channel and like this video. And in the comments, tell me one habit you've been trying to change for a long time. Not your entire life plan, just one habit. Because by the end of this video, you may realize that the smallest change you've been ignoring is the one that can finally change everything. And it all starts with a story. So let me tell you about someone who lived exactly inside that cycle. His name was Christopher. Christopher was 40 years old. He weighed 142 kilos. And without realizing it, he was slowly disappearing from his own life. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't careless. And he wasn't a bad person. He was a stock manager at a warehouse, a job he had held for 15 years. Every weekday, his alarm rang at 5 o'clock in the morning. He left the house before sunrise and came back around 7 o'clock at night, exhausted, mentally drained, and running on fumes. At home, there was a wife who depended on him, 2 kids who loved him, bills that never stopped coming. Christopher did what he thought a responsible man was supposed to do. He worked. He provided, and somewhere along the way, he completely forgot that he had a body. Food wasn't something he enjoyed anymore. It was something he fit in. Breakfast happened in the car, usually something fast and processed. Lunch was eaten at his desk, barely noticed between emails and deadlines. Dinner was on the couch, in front of the TV, because he didn't have the energy to sit at the table and talk. Weekends were his reward. Pizza, beer, the couch. After all, he told himself, he worked harder than most people. He deserved to rest. But his body didn't see it as rest. Slowly, small warning signs began to appear. Climbing stairs left him breathless. Tying his shoes became an awkward struggle that required sitting down and holding his breath. Simple movements felt heavier than they should have. His kids noticed before he did. When his children were younger, they used to ask him to play all the time. Tag in the backyard, running at the park. Simple games that didn't matter until they did. At first, Christopher said no because he was tired. then because his knees hurt, then because he had work to finish. Eventually, they stopped asking, and that hurt more than any number on a scale ever could. His wife tried to help. She suggested evening walks, small changes, healthier habits. Christopher nodded, agreed, and changed nothing. Not because he didn't care, but because he had already tried. 3 times, he joined a gym and stayed for a couple of months before quitting. Once, he followed a strict low-carb diet and gave up after 3 weeks. Another time, he forced himself to run every morning for 5 days straight before stopping completely. Each failure added weight, not to his body, but to his mind. Eventually, he reached a dangerous conclusion, the kind that feels calm, but quietly kills hope. This is just how I am. I've always been overweight. It's genetics. My metabolism is slow. I don't have time. And worst of all, I've tried already. Christopher didn't feel angry anymore. He didn't feel motivated or inspired. He felt resigned. He accepted that this was his life now. Working, eating, resting, repeating. Watching his children grow up from the sidelines. And then, one ordinary Saturday morning, something happened that would shatter that acceptance completely. That Saturday morning started like any other. Christopher was in the backyard while his 9-year-old son played with a ball. To be clear, Christopher wasn't really playing. He was sitting in a plastic chair, watching from the shade while his son kicked the ball back and forth by himself. The sun was out. The air was warm. It should have been a perfect moment. At some point, the ball flew farther than usual and landed in the neighbor's flower bed. "Dad, can you get it for me?" Christopher nodded and pushed himself out of the chair. He walked slowly toward the fence, stepped into the garden, and bent down to pick up the ball. And then, he couldn't get back up. It wasn't sharp pain. Nothing was broken. There was no dramatic injury. His legs simply didn't have the strength to lift his body anymore. Christopher tried to push himself up. Nothing happened. He tried again, using his hands, holding his breath, forcing his stomach in. Still nothing. So he stayed there, on all fours, in the middle of someone else's flower bed, sweating, breathing hard, pretending to adjust his shoe while his body refused to move. His son stood a few steps away, silent, watching. Seconds felt like minutes. Finally, the neighbor noticed and rushed over, asking if everything was okay. Without saying much, he grabbed Christopher's arm and helped pull him up. Christopher smiled, mumbled something, and handed the ball back to his son. But inside, something had cracked. That night, after the house was quiet, Christopher sat on the edge of the bed and cried. He cried because he was only 40 years old and needed help standing up. He cried because his son had seen it. And most of all, he cried because he knew a memory had just been created. My father was weak. His wife walked into the room and saw him sitting there. She didn't lecture him. She didn't give advice. She sat beside him, hugged him, and after a long silence, she said one sentence. "You need help, Chris." Really? That was it. No blame. No anger. Just truth. The next morning, Christopher woke up with that moment replaying in his head. The garden, his son's face, the silence. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel tired or defeated. He felt afraid. Afraid that if he didn't change something now, this would be his life forever. Afraid that one day his children wouldn't remember him as the man who supported them, but as the man who watched from a chair. So that Sunday, he did something he had never done before. He asked for help. By Sunday morning, Christopher knew he couldn't keep going like this. So he picked up the phone and called the only friend who had ever managed to change for good. "Marcus," he said, voice tight, "how did you do it? Did you go to a doctor? Take medicine? What worked?" Marcus paused. Then he said something that stopped Christopher cold. "No, Chris. It wasn't medicine. It wasn't a diet. It was a philosophy." Christopher frowned. "Philosophy? Philosophy doesn't make you lose weight, Marcus. You can't eat thoughts." Marcus chuckled. "You're wrong. That's exactly what it does. It changes the way you act, the way you think. It changes everything. That was how Christopher first heard about Dr. Teacher Yamamoto. By the following Tuesday, he found himself walking into a consultation room that didn't feel like a doctor's office at all. No hospital smell. No anatomy charts. No rows of pills or machines. Just a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a huge window overlooking a serene garden. Dr. Yamamoto entered. About 65 years old. Thin. Straight-backed. Calm in every movement. He didn't look like a doctor. He looked like a monk. "Christopher," he said, his voice steady, "tell me what brought you here." And Christopher told him everything. The weight, the exhaustion, the children, the shame, the flower bed. He spoke quickly, almost afraid that if he paused, the story might disappear. When he finished, he braced himself for the usual prescription. Diet plan, exercise regimen, blood tests, something, anything. Dr. Yamamoto simply looked at him. He didn't open a file, didn't type on a keyboard, didn't reach for a prescription pad. "Christopher," he said, "how many times have you tried to lose weight?" 3, 4, maybe more. And each time, it lasted 2 months at most. Usually just a few weeks. The doctor nodded. Then he said something that made Christopher's stomach twist. "Do you know why it failed?" Christopher began his usual list. Genetics, metabolism, lack of time. Dr. Yamamoto raised his hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "No, you failed because you tried to win a 40-year war in a 2-month battle. Your body took 40 years to reach this weight. Your mind took 40 years to build these habits. And you think you can undo it in weeks?" Silence. Christopher didn't know whether to be angry or embarrassed. Then Dr. Yamamoto leaned forward. "I have a proposition for you. A change so small you'll think I'm joking. So tiny it will seem pointless. Do you accept?" Christopher, desperate, nodded. "I'll try anything." Dr. Yamamoto smiled. "From today, every morning when you wake up, before doing anything else, drink a glass of water. That's all. 1 glass of water." Christopher blinked. "Butter? That's it? 1 glass of water? I need to lose 50 kilos. 1 glass won't do anything." The doctor nodded. "You're right. 1 glass of water won't make you lose 50 kilos. But it will do something much more important. It will prove that you can keep a promise to yourself. And that proof is all you need right now." Christopher left the office confused, frustrated, even annoyed. He had paid $200 to be told to drink water. But as he walked to his car, one thought kept echoing in his head. A promise to yourself. How many had he already broken? How many Mondays had he vowed to change, only to give up by Wednesday? If he couldn't trust himself, how could he ever trust change? That night, Christopher filled a glass with water and set it on his bedside table. And for the first time in weeks, the small action felt heavier than fear. That night, Christopher went to bed with a glass of water waiting on his bedside table. The next morning, when his alarm went off at 5 a.m., the first thing he saw was that glass. He picked it up and drank it. Simple, silent, almost absurd. Day 2, he did the same thing. Day 3, the same. By the 7th day, something strange happened. He woke up before his alarm and immediately thought, "Where's my glass of water?" His brain had started expecting it. The habit was embedding itself quietly, almost invisibly. 2 weeks later, Christopher returned to Dr. Yamamoto's office. "Did you drink water every day?" the doctor asked. Christopher hesitated. Then, a small smile crept across his face. "Yes, every day." "How do you feel?" "Honestly, a little silly. I haven't lost any weight yet, but I did it. I kept a promise to myself." Dr. Yamamoto nodded. "That, Christopher, is the first principle of Japanese philosophy that will change your life. It's called Kaizen, continuous improvement through microscopic changes. 1% better every day. You didn't try to climb the mountain in one leap. You took one small step, and then another, and then another." Christopher's eyes widened. "All I did was drink water," he said. "No," the doctor replied. You did more than that. You proved to your brain that change is possible, that you are capable of keeping a promise to yourself. That alone is a victory far greater than any diet or workout plan. Then, Dr. Yamamoto added the next step. Continue drinking water every morning. But now, I want you to put only half the food you would normally put on your plate. Eat slowly. If after 20 minutes you are still hungry, you may eat more. But first half. Christopher hesitated. It seemed too small again, but he had already built the water habit for 14 days. He had shown himself that he could follow through. Okay, he said quietly. Good. We will meet again in 3 weeks. What Christopher didn't realize yet was that he was not just changing habits. He was beginning a transformation of identity. The small wins, the glass of water, half a plate, were tiny, but they were proof. Proof that he was capable. Proof that he could follow through. Proof that he could be the kind of person who keeps promises to himself. The first week with half the plate was brutal. His brain screamed, "You're still hungry. Eat more." But he remembered Dr. Yamamoto's instructions. Wait 20 minutes. If still hungry, eat more. 3 weeks later, he had eaten more after 20 minutes only twice. Twice in 3 weeks. He was learning moderation, not punishment. He was learning that change didn't require perfection. He was learning that consistency, even through tiny steps, was far more powerful than willpower or motivation. By the end of that first month, Christopher felt something he hadn't felt in years. Control. Not because he had lost a lot of weight, but because he had achieved something. Something simple. Something small. Something that proved to him that he could do this. And for the first time, he believed it. The small victories Christopher had begun to accumulate didn't stay small for long. By the second week of drinking water and eating half his usual portions, he started noticing something he hadn't expected. His brain, once a constant source of complaints, began to differentiate between true hunger and habitual craving. The first few days, finishing his half plate left him restless, staring at the stove, thinking, just a little more won't hurt. But after 20 minutes passed and he realized he wasn't truly hungry, he resisted the urge. In 3 weeks, he only went back for seconds twice. 2 times out of dozens of meals. It was proof, simple but undeniable, that his body wasn't starving. It was just spoiled. At his next appointment, the scale confirmed it, 3 kilos down. Dr. Yamamoto didn't celebrate the number. "It's not about the weight, Christopher," he said. "It's about direction. For the first time in 40 years, your body is moving where you want it to go." And that direction brought a second change, one even more powerful. Movement. Not in the way Christopher imagined. No marathon, no gym memberships, no impossible early morning workouts. Just one step, from his front door to the mailbox and back each morning, immediately after drinking his glass of water. Christopher laughed the first morning. "The mailbox is 20 meters from my door. This isn't exercise." "It's not about exercise," Dr. Yamamoto replied. "It's about creating the habit of movement. Your body has forgotten it was made to move. Remind it gently." So he did it, day after day, step by step. The third morning, his 7-year-old daughter noticed him leaving. "Dad, can I come with you?" Hand in hand, they walked to the mailbox. They talked about school, her best friend, little stories she had never shared before. The connection was subtle at first, but unmistakable. A small habit was now shaping a large emotional landscape. The following week, he walked a little farther, just to the corner store. Not because Dr. Yamamoto said so, but because his daughter wanted to accompany him. The first time in years, Christopher wasn't only moving, he was present. Really present. By the end of the second month, he had lost 8 kilos. Not enough to fill him with pride about his appearance, but enough to see something else in the mirror. It wasn't the reflection of a thinner man. It was the light in his eyes. A spark that hadn't been there in decades. Confidence. Control. Identity beginning to shift. Every small choice, water, half the plate, mailbox walk, triggered something larger. The keystone habits were working. One habit led to another, like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. His body remembered movement, his mind remembered restraint, and his family remembered him, the real him, coming back. At night, Christopher would glance at his daughter playing quietly in the living room and feel a mix of pride and relief. He had begun creating new memories with her, ones where he was participating, not just observing. Where he was active, engaged, alive. It was a slow transformation, almost imperceptible day by day. But with every sip of water, every half plate, every 20-meter walk, he was proving to himself, I can follow through. I am capable. I am changing. The first signs of real identity shift were subtle, no longer thinking of himself as a man defeated by his habits, but as someone who could take small, deliberate actions that led to meaningful results. For the first time in decades, he looked in the mirror and saw potential, not failure. The reflection wasn't perfect. His body was still heavy, still loose in places, still a long way from ideal. But the light in his eyes, the awareness of I can do this, was something no diet, no exercise program, no motivational speech could give him. And just like that, small steps compounded into momentum. His habits weren't isolated anymore. They were shaping the man he wanted to become. And that man, present, alive, and engaged, was beginning to show up in every room of his life. By the third month, Christopher had started seeing real changes. Water every morning, half plates, walks to the mailbox, and small victories were stacking up. His reflection showed progress, but Dr. Yamamoto knew it wasn't enough. Transformation required more than habits. It required purpose. During one consultation, the doctor leaned forward and asked a question Christopher hadn't expected. Christopher, tell me something. Why are you doing all this? Christopher paused. At first, he thought about weight, about health, about looking better. No, not just that, he said slowly. Dr. Yamamoto didn't rush him. He waited, and so Christopher began to speak from a deeper place. I want to see my children grow up. I want to walk my daughter down the aisle someday. I want to spend real time with my wife, to be present for her. I want to feel proud of myself. The words felt heavy but true. For the first time, he was naming the real reason behind his efforts. That, said Dr. Yamamoto softly, is your Ikigai, your reason for living. Not losing weight, not dieting, not exercise. Being present for your family, that is your fuel. That is what will sustain you. Christopher leaned back, letting the words sink in. Ikigai wasn't about motivation, the fleeting rush of energy that came and went. It was about identity. It was about purpose. It was about building a life worth living, one that aligned with your deepest values. Suddenly, the daily glass of water wasn't just a habit. Eating half his plate wasn't just discipline. Walking 20 meters wasn't just a small exercise. Every action became tied to a larger meaning. Each small choice was now a brick in the life he wanted to live. He wasn't drinking water because the doctor told him to. He was drinking water because he wanted to keep his promise to himself and show up for his children. He wasn't walking to the mailbox because it was exercise. He was walking to reconnect with his body, to reclaim his presence, to build a relationship with his daughter. And that shift, aligning action with purpose, changed everything. Consistency became automatic. The things he once struggled to do were no longer chores or fights of willpower, they were expressions of who he was. Motivation came and went as it always does. Purpose didn't. Purpose anchored him when the small failures came. Purpose reminded him why he couldn't quit, even when it felt easier to stop. For the first time in his life, Christopher realized that weight loss, or any transformation, wasn't about trying harder. It was about being someone who keeps showing up, no matter what. He left that appointment with a new understanding. The habits themselves were important, but their real power came from the reason behind them. Ikigai had locked his motivation into identity. He was no longer just a man trying to lose weight. He was a father, a husband, a man showing up for his family, one small action at a time. And with that clarity, even the most mundane tasks, The water, the half plate, the mailbox walk carried the weight of meaning. They were no longer small, they were transformative. By the 9th week, Christopher had started to feel like he could handle almost anything. The routines were becoming natural. The water in the morning, the half plates, the short walks, they were no longer tasks. They were part of his day. But life, as it always does, tested him. Thanksgiving arrived. A table groaning with turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, pumpkin pie, pecan pie, the works. Family gathered, everyone smiling, everyone pressing plates with heaping portions. Christopher tried to apply his new habits, placing only half of each dish on his plate. But the questions came. Is that all? His mother asked, eyebrows raised. Are you feeling sick? Dude, it's Thanksgiving, his brother-in-law said. Forget the diet for one day. The old pressure, the old excuses, crept in. And just like that, Christopher gave in. He ate until he felt uncomfortable, full beyond reason. That night, sitting in front of the mirror, shame washed over him. I've ruined everything. I'll never change. I always fail. By morning, the thought of getting up, drinking water, and walking seemed unbearable. He almost didn't. But then he remembered something Dr. Yamamoto had said weeks ago, words that hadn't made sense at the time. You will fail. And when you do, you will discover if you've truly changed. Christopher picked up his phone and texted the doctor. I ate too much yesterday. I ruined everything. I don't know if I can keep going. 2 minutes later, the reply came. Come to the office this afternoon. Sitting in his usual chair, he expected a lecture, a scolding, or a motivational speech. Instead, Dr. Yamamoto leaned back, calm as always, and asked, Tell me what happened. Christopher explained everything. The feast, the pressure, the shame, the urge to quit. And did you drink water this morning? Did you walk? The doctor asked. I walked, Christopher admitted. So you didn't fail. You stumbled. Christopher froze. Stumbling is not failure, Dr. Yamamoto continued. When you stumble, you lose balance for a moment. Falling is when you stop completely. You did not fall. The relief was immediate, almost physical. A weight lifted off his chest. And there's something else you must learn, the doctor said, eyes kind but firm. It's a philosophy called Wabi-Sabi. It celebrates imperfection. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is complete. Your mistakes do not erase your progress. One imperfect day does not undo 3 months of effort. Your journey is beautiful because it is real, because it is human. Christopher felt a crack open inside him. Not a breaking point, but a release. The crushing expectation of perfection shattered. And one more thing, Dr. Yamamoto added. Today, despite wanting to quit, you drank water and walked anyway. That is Gambaru. Perseverance. Enduring discomfort because you know it is temporary. Every time you stumble, every imperfect day, you build it. You practice resilience. You strengthen yourself. Christopher exhaled slowly, letting the words sink in. For the first time, he understood that the system wasn't about never failing. It was about always returning. It was about being consistent despite imperfection. The pressure lifted. The shame diminished. He wasn't perfect. He was persistent. And persistence, he realized, would carry him farther than perfection ever could. That day, he left the office lighter, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He understood that failure wasn't a full stop. It was a comma, a pause before the next step. And with that understanding, he was ready to continue. After embracing Wabi-Sabi and Gambaru, Christopher continued his small, daily actions. Water every morning, half plates, and short walks became second nature. The initial stumbles no longer shook him. They were now just part of the process. Months passed. 3, 6, 9, each day stacking upon the last. By the 6th month, he had lost 23 kilos. But the real change wasn't visible on the scale. It was in the moments that had once seemed impossible. He could now go downstairs and sit on the floor to play Lego with his son without stopping to catch his breath. He could join his daughter in the yard, running and laughing as she played tag. The heavy, sluggish man who once watched life pass by from a chair was gone. Evenings became opportunities rather than obstacles. When his wife suggested a walk after dinner, he said yes without hesitation. Saturday afternoons, which had once been full of excuses, now meant chasing his children around the backyard, sweating, smiling, fully alive. Medical checkups confirmed what he already felt. Cholesterol was down, blood pressure normalized, blood sugar stabilized. The body had transformed because the actions had become part of his identity. By the 9th month, he had lost 35 kilos. He was walking 30 minutes daily, eating only as much as his body needed, sleeping better, and moving through life with purpose. But the most profound transformation wasn't physical. It was who he had become. He no longer thought, "I am a fat man trying to lose weight." He thought, "I am someone who takes care of myself." Dr. Yamamoto asked during a routine visit, "When was the last time you thought about giving up?" Christopher paused. He couldn't remember. It had been weeks, maybe months. He realized he no longer tried to change. He simply lived differently. The habits were now part of his identity, not something he had to force. This shift extended beyond the body. At work, he began applying Kaizen, making one small improvement per day. Within a year, he was promoted to regional manager. At home, he applied the same philosophy to his marriage. Small, consistent actions that strengthened connection with his wife. Even the children absorbed the change. His son woke early to exercise without being told. His daughter started walking with him daily. They weren't forced, they followed his example. Christopher began to understand a deeper truth. Transformation is not just personal. It's permissive. When you change, you give those around you permission to change. His family's health, habits, and mindset shifted simply because he had committed to small, consistent action. By the 12th month, he had lost 52 kilos. Standing in front of the mirror, he didn't just see a thinner man. He saw a man who had kept promises to himself every single day for a year. Loose skin remained. 15 kilos were still left to reach his ideal weight. But he didn't care. He had regained something far more important than a number: presence, confidence, and identity. 2 years later, he weighed 88 kilos, healthy and strong. The routines remained: water in the morning, walks, eating until 80% full. But now, he trained others, guiding them to start with one ridiculously small change, just as Dr. Yamamoto had taught him. At home, the impact was visible in photographs. One showed him at 142 kilos, sitting in a chair watching his children play. Another showed him at 88 kilos, actively playing with them, laughing, fully engaged. His wife had taken that photo without him knowing. When he saw it, he asked, "Why did you take that?" She smiled, "Because this is the moment I've been waiting for 10 years, the moment you came back." The legacy wasn't just weight loss. It was a living example for his children. Consistency, resilience, and identity matter more than perfection. It was proof that real transformation begins with one tiny, committed action. Christopher had become a man whose habits, actions, and presence gave life not just to himself, but to everyone around him. One glass of water, one walk, one small choice at a time, over months and years, had rebuilt an entire family ecosystem. By now, you've seen the journey Christopher took. From watching life pass by to fully participating in it. From stumbling to building resilience. From temporary habits to a permanent identity. All of it wasn't magic. It wasn't a diet, a pill, or a flashy fitness program. It was a system grounded in 5 simple Japanese philosophies. Ikigai, discovering your purpose, your reason for living, the deeper why behind your actions. Kaizen, committing to continuous, microscopic improvement, just 1% better each day. Hara Hachi Bu, practicing moderation, eating until you're 80% full, respecting your body's signals. Wabi-Sabi, accepting imperfection, understanding that mistakes don't erase progress. Gambaru, perseverance, showing up even when it's hard, enduring temporary discomfort. Christopher didn't follow these philosophies in isolation. They worked together like pieces of a puzzle, forming a framework for real, lasting change. And the most important piece? Identity. Most systems fail because they focus on behavior alone. Do this, do that, follow the steps. But if you haven't shifted who you are, you'll always revert back when life gets hard. Temporary motivation fades. Discipline falters. Habits break. Christopher's transformation shows what happens when change becomes part of your identity. He didn't just do things differently. He became someone different. Someone who keeps promises to themselves, who acts consistently, who doesn't quit after a stumble. And now, I want to give you the same opportunity. Not a plan, not a 30-day miracle. Just one ridiculously small action. Choose one change. It must be so tiny that it feels almost silly. So small that you can't make an excuse not to do it. It could be drinking a glass of water every morning, 5 push-ups before bed, 1 minute of meditation, reading a single page from a book. Do this every day for 14 days. No additions, no shortcuts, no skipping, just one small thing. Then make it public. Write a comment below telling me what your first microscopic change will be. Not the entire transformation plan, just the first step. When you make that public statement, you turn intention into commitment. You've just started your journey. And here's the most powerful part, the proof you'll gain. After 14 days, you will know that you can keep a promise to yourself. And when you know that, you can keep any promise. Then you'll add the next small change and then the next. Before you know it, you'll be a different person, not because you forced it, but because you became it one tiny step at a time. Christopher's story took months, even years. Yours might too. Time passes anyway. The real question is, in 5 years, will you be in the same place, frustrated, looking in the mirror with regret? Or will you be someone who fulfills the promises they made to themselves? One day, one choice, one tiny action at a time? Ikigai gives purpose. Kaizen gives method. Hara Hachi Bu gives moderation. Wabi-Sabi gives compassion. Gambaru gives strength. You don't need to master them all at once. Start with one thing today, and when you stumble, as you inevitably will, you don't quit. You get back up, because transformation isn't about never falling. It's about always rising. Now it's your turn. What is your smallest, ridiculously simple first step? Write it below. Commit. And start building the person you want to be.